Good morning. Welcome back to Naas and on the other hand, Deon Anderson. Morning, Deon.
Morning, Naas.
Okay, let's start. We had an absolute fantastic rugby weekend. But look at this. Look at the ball, Deon. Super Springbok. Now, after yesterday, we can say Super Springboks. But you've been a fly-off. I've been a fly-off. That's why there's so much knowledge around here. Is that let's talk about one player before we get to the game, before we get to the score, how everybody else did their job. Let's talk a little bit about Sasha.
Yeah, what a performance. And I think he broke Percy's record of 35 points as well.
Yeah.
It was just flawless. And I think that's a proud young man this morning.
The way I looked at it is that, and I listened to Rassie Erasmus last night, and it was quite nice to get from the inside a little bit of info. He actually said, Rassie sort of brought him in a little bit here, a little bit there, to actually grow as a flyer. Because at one stage, we spoke about it, is he better at fullback, maybe at centre, because he also played well at centre. But the performance yesterday, if you look at the downfield kick, did you think he was that quick on a rugby field to go and score by himself?
Not at all. I think he showed a lot of pace over there, but it was also lazy running from Argentina. I mean, they were lackluster at some stage, and it just shows you how good the chase was.
Nice work you mentioned, lackluster. Okay. Do you think they were lackluster, or do you think we actually played them to a point that they could hardly move because they were very slack in the last 20 minutes? But don't you think it's the overall performance of 60 minutes? You know the old saying, sometimes the game breaks open after 78 minutes. Sometimes the game breaks open after 40 minutes. I think this game really broke open after 60 minutes.
No, it did. And you could see it on the field as well. But I think it's the 2 games now that the Boks just turned on the heat in the second half.
Yeah.
And a completely dominant performance.
Okay. But just again, quickly about Sasha. Okay. 3 tries. Absolute phenomenal. Okay. He's kicking. Immaculate. You're a kicking coach at the moment, so you'll know what I'm talking about. Okay. But just in general, I've got a nice question for you. I know you're the younger one of 2 of us, okay? How good, and we'll get to that game later, how good can New Zealand be, listen to the question, if you put Sasha in an All Black jersey at number 10?
Yeah, that will be a life changer for them at the moment. Mm-hmm. And once again, you could see yesterday, if you've got a class number 10, you're going to win games. And Sasha took complete control. And that's one thing that's lacking at the All Blacks at the moment. But we've been speaking about it the whole championship. And you could see it against France as well. But I think it also boils down to Beauden Barrett not being the number 1 fly-off. And once again, the question comes up, is he a fly-off?
Yeah. Okay, so Sasha, and I looked at everybody else. I looked at Siya Kolisi. He did a lot of hard work yesterday. Peter Steck, I still believe people don't understand his value. Nortje really played another game. It's the front row, okay? Jasper Wiese yesterday. I always thought he's a hard man. But yesterday, he actually not proved it again and again and again. But the combination that we have at the moment must be one of the stronger combinations as a trio loose forward.
Well, that is definitely our best loose trio. I think those 3 guys work together well. Like you mentioned, Rugby, he's made a massive step up championship. And I think Rassie favors him at this stage, but he's doing his job. And Juan Venter that came in for Ox also didn't do a bad job. But all in all, it was a massive performance from all of them. Obviously, Sasha taking the lead from 10. And You can never go wrong with Peter Steff and Jasper Riese.
Now, if we look at, we had 2 incidents, okay, and I loved it because it just shows you can learn every week something different, something new, okay. So we easily got the ball down. I thought when they started the replays, is it all about that he put the ball down? I thought, guys, why are you wasting time? And then I saw, no, he actually drop kicked, but he wanted to kick it to, just to restart the game.
Yeah.
And suddenly it went over the goal line and Argentina scored. And I know the law, but it's the first time, and to be honest, I think the last time that we'll ever see that scenario. Were you a little bit surprised? Not because of the play of Colby, because you can't find anything fault with the way he did it. But how sharp the Argentine players were to pick up, that was actually the start of the game and his fault.
Yeah. I think hats off to Kokobares there because he was alert. And the fact that the ball went 5 meters, that's why the ball was actually live in play. So we all know what his intentions were.
Yeah.
And it was never to do that. But if the ball didn't travel 5 meters, then it would have been a reset as well. But the Argentine player was just alert and awake at that stage. And 7 points.
But you agree with me. We sometimes tend to think players always complain, and then we've got a question or two. Do they really know the laws? Because they all complain about the ball on the ground or whatever, and then they give away the next penalty. But that was very sharp. Okay, the other one, the penalty trial. Marks that come in from the side. Yes. No complaint. The only thing that I think in future, because you learn as you go along, just wait on the goal line. For the player then to come into you, make sure you stay underneath him and just make sure he doesn't score.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely. No doubt it was a penalty at least.
Yeah.
But like you say, I think it's a good idea just to wait on the goal line and then go in because then there's no offside lines once you get onto the goal line. And I thought that try would put Argentina into the lead at halftime, which would have given them a boost. But once again, lose the kickoff.
Yeah.
And South Africa goes and score.
But in general, and I want to mention Stormers, they were unbelievable with their way handling the kickoff. But we'll get to that game a little bit later. But overall, think about all the games, okay? The kickoffs were totally different. In the past, we saw about 80% the team kicking off, actually winning the ball back. Yesterday, and I was watching every kickoff, and it was 80% the team receiving that won the kickoff now. And that's a vast difference. And I think teams are actually sort of realizing, hey, we just scored 7 points. We can't just give away another 7 points straight off the kickoff.
Yeah, and I think if Argentina went into the lead at halftime, they would have had more belief. And but they were already getting tired. And it just cost them at the end. But you have to retain your kickoffs after just scoring. And they did it twice in the first half. I think it was Sasha's chase.
Yeah.
Also came from the kickoff. They kicked it back.
Yeah.
So that's within 2 minutes of a kickoff receive that you just concede the ball and you're conceding 14 points.
Okay. The thing that, before we move on to Australia All Blacks, okay, the thing that stood out yesterday for me, and that's where I sometimes look at coaches and say, why don't you pick it up sooner? This is not working. Argentina tried to play from their number 9. He did, let's say, plus minus 8 to 10 high kicks. I don't think any up and under went further than 5 meters. He absolutely had no idea to get the ball in the air and put the pressure on the Springboks. You saw how many times he kicked it just straight up. Okay. Now, the question that I raise from the side, is that if it doesn't work, why don't you change the game plan first, okay? Or secondly, why don't you change the player? Because he didn't work yesterday.
Yeah, he really cost them. And we all know your kicking has to be on point, especially at test level.
Yeah.
And that definitely lacked. But like you say, why didn't they adapt? Why didn't they maybe play from 10? Let he do the kicking? But they definitely didn't adapt. And it was easy for the box just to pick it up. And yeah, he didn't gain any meters, putting his own team offsides most of the time.
Most of the time. That's the thing, Deon, that they don't really penalize.
Yeah.
Is the 10-meter radius. Because they could have been penalized every single time.
And just one thing from the kickoffs as well. Something that I picked up this weekend, especially at the junior games as well that I was involved at, is players being in front of the kicker from a kickoff.
Okay.
They're 4-5 meters ahead of the kicker. Now you wonder why there's so much pressure on the guy receiving the ball. But the refs don't actually look at the chasing players.
Okay.
And that is something that I advise to all coaches to tell the ref or the captain before the match, listen, have a look at this because it's happening week in and week out.
Okay. Now let's get, but firstly, let's be honest. Finally, the performance of Sasha. We've seen great performances from players throughout the years. Dan Carter. You know, people, I look at it in that sense, the guy absolutely put him in a different league yesterday. But the same can be said of Pollard kicking 6 out of 6. The same can be said of Mani creating so many tries when he's on the field. Dan Carter, Andrew Mertich. You can go through the history. Igor Porta playing against us, actually beating us by like a one-man show. So, but that is definitely, as an overall performance, one of the better ones that I've seen of a Flav in a very, very long time.
No, for sure. And I think with that performance, he actually cemented his place. So it's going to be difficult for someone else to take that position. But let's hope he stays injury-free now.
Yeah.
Because he has been injury-prone a little bit. So let's hope that's something of the past. But that was a statement performance from Sasha. And hats off to him. It was pure brilliance. And if he can keep that form going.
All Blacks Australia. I must say, in the first half, All Blacks definitely on a different level. They played a good game. Okay. But then you have to say Australia actually came back extremely strongly. Okay. But at the end, and I must be honest, Deon, I can understand Australia's frustration this morning. Because what happened in the last 15 minutes, let's say 10, 15 minutes, was an absolute joke. The way they got penalized, play after play, got a yellow card. I'm not saying they had an opportunity to beat the All Blacks. I'm not saying that, because I think on the day, the All Blacks were the better side. Okay? But that is not the way we want to see rugby being handled by a referee. Okay? And don't blame the referee. I'm coming back again, Deon. Blame the laws. Because what did he do? And we'll speak about the law a little bit later, okay? But what did he do? He applied the law, but through the way he thinks to apply the law. I don't know how you saw that, but it was absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, it was really bad. And I feel the All Blacks were also blown out of the game just before halftime. Mm-hmm. And then after halftime, it turned around and then Australia got penalized. I think in the first 6 minutes in the second half, they got penalized 6 times on the ground.
Yeah.
Now the rugby is starting to become a massive problem for world rugby all over. Because I don't think anybody is clear of what the actual law is these days. Because it feels like every ref just blows it as he sees it, like you said. And there's no consistency. And it's costing teams, and we spoke about it yesterday, that teams don't want to play anymore. Why aren't they playing? Because they don't want to concede penalties. And there was, yeah, but like you said, it was a great performance from the All Blacks in the first 20, 30 minutes.
At least.
Australia came back, but they've shown that the whole championship that they never lie down.
Yeah.
But catch-up rugby is difficult, and you're not going to catch up every single test. But yeah, I think it was 2010, just before halftime, the ref penalized Proctor coming in from the side. From that line out, setting up phases, Fabian Holland tries to steal the ball, and Nick Frost cleans him from the side, completely from the side, right in front of the ref. Plays on, Harry Potter scores his drive. 2017 halftime, now all of a sudden Australia is back in the game.
Yeah.
But once again, it's the consistency.
Yeah.
That's all we want to see is more consistency from the refs. But yeah, Naas, it's a massive problem at this moment.
No, but I think if you like we spoke about Russia, there's two players that if you take them out of the All Black side, it's going to be a different ballgame. You take Sevilla out of the side and Roy Gott out of the side. You always kept telling me how good he is, okay? And I didn't really see enough because I'm not really watching too much Super Rugby and because the attention is more with URC and that. But he was absolutely phenomenal yesterday. And I really saw the value in Roy Gott at number 9 and what it means to the All Blacks with him and without him.
No, well, he was the difference for me. And I think he kept Australia busy around the fringes. Obviously, his left boot is massive for them.
Yeah.
But like you said, that makes the Flav job much easier as well. And I think Damien McKenzie, when he came on, also looked like a different player with Roy Gott on his inside and playing halfback. But yeah, I don't think we can mention Ardie Sevilla's name too much because that guy is just on another level. And he's like a Peter Steph, Jasper Sia to the All Blacks. If he's not there, they are going to have problems.
Okay, and that problem for me yesterday, and it just shows you that, everyone's got his own opinion. But the two missed conversions by Bode made nearly a big difference at the end. Luckily it didn't. Okay, luckily it didn't. But it just shows you at international level, you can't afford anything less than 80% success on goal kicking.
Yeah, and that's something Bowden has been struggling with. Yeah. I don't know. In his younger days, he kicked much better. He kicked the ball further. It just feels like he's cramped up and he's got no distance. His ball flight is too low. But like you say, he's not kicking nearly at a high percentage that he should be doing.
Okay. Now, why do you think it's a thing of Jordy not kick? Because we've seen him, and he's a good place kicker. Okay, we all know Mackenzie is good, but you can't kick from the bench. So why don't you think they just start with Jordy and let him kick?
Yeah, and I feel that's something that Jordy might just say to his brother, listen, let me do the goal kicking.
Yeah.
Because Bowden's ball distribution and all that stuff is amazing, and he's a good player.
Fantastic player.
But you have to have a Flav that can kick, and he's not kicking well at the moment.
See, that's why I asked you a little bit earlier. Put Sasha into that All Black side.
No, he'll make a massive difference.
Yeah, he will.
But that's what they lack. They need a playmaker. Damien, Bowden, they're not sure which one they want to pick.
Okay, just before you go, don't you think Mackenzie is maybe the better choice at the moment?
At this stage, definitely. And especially with his goal kicking. So I'll definitely pick him above Bowden.
Yeah.
And but I don't think they can wait any longer to get Moanga back.
Yeah. Okay. Next week, we go to Twickenham. Okay. Bledisloe Low Cup is staying with the All Blacks again. I think it's, I can't recall how many years, but it's 25. Okay. Only 25 years. Okay. But do you think going to Twickenham is giving any advantage to Argentina at the moment, or are we on such a role at the moment because every week people trying to find something to criticize the Springboks. And there's absolutely nothing that you can actually find. The high kicking game is working. Our wings are absolutely magnificent under the high ball. Okay. I thought Damien yesterday played well at fullback. I think sometimes there's a difference in a tight game. Yesterday wasn't a tight game at the end, okay? But the tight game and he did it in the second half. The ball inside the 22, just kick it out. Just kick it out and let's restart. That's when I thought he started thinking like a fullback. But he was brilliant at centre with Moody, okay? So what do you think? What do you think is the better way for South Africa to go future-wise? Moody Willemse at centre or Damien looking with Fussy at fullback? What do you think here?
No, I think for the future, I'll play Damien at 12.
Okay.
Because there's not really someone else that's standing out at this moment apart from Deon. But obviously, he's also getting a little bit older, although he's still playing very well. But going forward, Willemse is definitely the solution at 12 because I think Sasha made the statement that he's going to have the number 10 as long as he's not injured.
Yeah.
Moody is playing exceptionally well on the center.
Yeah.
And I think that's a position that he also needs to stabilize now because he's also been moving around, especially at the Bulls, playing wing, center, fullback. They need to decide. Let's stick with this guy now at center. And Curtly Orange is coming back, end of year tour. Ethan Hooker playing well. Yep, then you're very well. Then you've got Cheslin obviously on the wing. So I'll play Curtly Orange at fullback.
Okay, that's an interesting one.
Yeah,
That's an interesting one.
just to accommodate Hooker or whoever's on the wing with Cheslin. And Ed Wolf and Amava also made a comeback for the Sharks on the weekend.
And he actually looked good on the wing.
So if he's back in the mix and he's playing wing with Cheslin, then you can't leave Orange out. So, and he can play fullback. Then you've got even a much more dangerous back three. And that's why I'll also play Willemse at 12.
Okay, so no advantage for Argentina playing at Rugby.
No, I think it's going to be another home game for the Boks, basically.
Okay.
I think with all the South Africans living in London, all the support, and the fact that they've beaten the All Blacks there with a record margin as well, I can't see any favoritism for Argentina.
Okay, now I'm going to, just before we just quickly touch on URC, because it did start yesterday. Okay, and we saw two South African teams. I must say, these formers were absolutely brilliant. The Bulls first half, it was an absolute first game of the season. Was messy, wasn't good, not nice to watch. Second half, the Bulls really proved that if that's the way they're going forward, and the Stormers, the way they play, then at least we have two teams. I feel a little bit for the Sharks. Not easy playing away from home, but somebody have to do that. So that's a little different one. The Lions, I thought they need to show a little bit more. But before we get to that, okay, last night when they spoke about Edinburgh, they spoke to the coach, okay, and then they showed 12 injuries. Okay, 12 injuries. Now we all know injuries is no excuse. Okay, because all teams have injuries. All teams. Okay. But that brings me back again. One season for rugby.
That's the only solution that there's going to be, because otherwise you're never going to find teams playing with their best teams. So the World Rugby really needs to consider this, and we've been speaking about it, and a lot of people have been speaking about it, but something needs to happen now, because there's too much rugby for your top 20, 25 players to compete at and staying fit for 6 to 7 months and still play international rugby as well. So the global season is something that really needs to happen.
Okay, now with that, I want to put Leinster on this fight. How bad was that? Really, how bad was that? For a Leicester team to play like they played. Okay. Now, no internationals. Okay. Now you want to market URC as forget the Investor Cup, because that's only a certain number of teams moving up with that, because that's your higher tier. Okay. But you want your product to be the best. Firstly, Edinburgh 12 injuries. No internationals because of the British and Irish tour. Springboks, Argentina, Australia, New Zealand playing. Okay. They're a little bit out of it. It's us because the Springboks are playing. So how can you actually market your competition, URC, as the competition, but 90% of the guys that should play in it don't play in it because why? Because they've got either international duties, or they've been on a tour, they need to rest, or they're injured.
That system, yeah,
It doesn't work.
it doesn't work. And it's actually sad because you want your brand to have the best exposure that it is. And it's going to hurt you at some stage. So once again, like you said, we need to get to a global season because that will be your only solution.
Yeah.
And while you were speaking now about the injuries, it just made me thought about the Australians again yesterday when they lost McDermott early. Tom Wright, Bellant Beach, Valentini, Skelton, those guys that aren't there.
Yeah. Big difference.
Yeah.
Big difference.
I felt if they had those guys yesterday, the All Blacks might have been in big trouble.
Yeah.
But once again, they need to have their strongest 15 on the field to be competitive against the big nations. 1 or 2 injuries here and there for them is going to cost them because they don't have the same quality player at this stage coming in for those guys. And but yeah, it comes back to what you just said. All the injuries and stuff. So they're going to have to look at a solution.
I'm going to give you an example. Okay. When I was with the Cowboys, we turned up with 150 rookies. Okay. Second day of training camp. Second day. Said, I think about 11 or 12 guys. How? Now, think about this. Let's put it in a rugby scenario. The two of us, we dream of playing for the Bulls because we live in Pretoria. Okay? We can also dream playing for the Stormers, but then we should move down to Cape Town. And I don't like the way. Okay. So I'd rather just say, yeah. But imagine how many times have we heard in the past players turning up for pre-season training. Then it sounds more, if you look at the numbers, like a rehab center instead of start training. Now, it is because of the structures at the moment. It's nobody's fault. You know, we can blame World Rugby. But then the clubs will come and say, but hey, we're paying the players. And then the franchises can come and say, hey, what are you talking about? We're paying the players. You see where I'm going with this. And that's why Skelton is not available, because he has to go and play because somebody is paying him to play. And that's a club in France. So he has to play for them. So where do you draw the line and say, okay, international rugby, because we've got a 3-week window, 3-week window. That's not enough. We all know. Okay. Now, where do you draw the line to get your best players to play the top international games? Like Australia should have all their best players now available, and we know they don't. Okay. New Zealand's their own call at the moment. Foreign players that's playing in foreign countries can't play for the All Blacks. Luckily, we changed that. But you see where we're going with this. This is it sounds like chaos, and it shouldn't be, because it should just be common sense. And there's no common sense at the moment.
Yeah, it comes back to what we just said. World Rugby will need to sit down and honestly rethink the whole structure to get this in place so that we as fans and supporters out there can see the best players at all times. Not even at the international level, but at your provincial level, club level, because that's purely what we want to see. And like you said, you don't want to hurt your own brand by not having your best players available. Mm-hmm. So Yeah, no, I totally agree with you on that. Hopefully it will happen sooner rather than later.
Okay. Nice crowd at Loftus yesterday. What about 5,000?
Yeah, not bad.
Shut up. Just quickly, URC. Bulls 53, Ospreys 40. No surprise. Okay. Stormers 35, Leinster 0. Big surprise.
That was a surprise, yeah.
And I think that Stormers did play well. They got how many penalties from scrums? When do you think overseas teams are actually going to figure out, listen, boys, we need to start concentrating on the scrums?
And that Lucid prop from the Stormers is a young guy. And scrumming against Lamani, that's been playing professional rugby for probably 13 years now, was amazing to see. But yeah, Leinster not scoring 1 point with Pendergrass at 10. And then it makes you realize he's a different player when he's surrounded by all these other international players.
Absolutely.
So that's a guy that should have done more on Friday night.
Okay, Lions Cardiff. I actually expected a little bit more from the Lions. 33-20 with a red card against Cardiff.
You know, if you play against 14 men, Naas, you have to close out those kind of matches, and especially with Cardiff. The Welsh teams aren't the strongest in the competition, so that's kind of the games that we as South African teams need to target to win.
Yeah, away from him. Away from him, not at all. Okay, and then the Sharks, okay, Glasgow. Okay, I actually thought tough start for them. Glasgow is a good side. Franco is doing a brilliant job. Just a quick question there. We've seen what Sasha did for South Africa. We saw a little bit what Mackenzie did when he came on for the All Blacks. Okay. O'Connor, I thought, really played well for Australian. Okay. Scrum off at fly-off for the Sharks. Don't you think there's another fly-off that they could have played?
Yeah, definitely. Playing guys out of position, especially at fly-off, makes life difficult for yourself, especially if he's not used to it. Jaden probably, he's got the potential to do it, but you could see he was in unfamiliar territory there.
Yeah, he was.
And they had Smith on the bench. Maybe they could have put him on earlier. I know Masuku is injured and Jordan is also injured, so he'll come back. But yeah, he didn't do what I think they expected of him.
Okay, then Connacht, Benetton, not a surprise. Munster, Scarlets, not a surprise. Zebra, 31, Edinburgh, 28. That's a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah, that was a surprise of the weekend. But I think you just mentioned now, with Edinburgh playing with 12 guys that's injured,
You see,
it makes life difficult. That's also a game which they would feel they need to win, especially also away. It's a little bit easier than playing, let's say, Munster away. So that's games that they target, but you don't have the quality players.
Okay, at least one thing I liked about the Zebras, their coach, Massimo Brunello, he was my fullback at Rugby when we won the championship. So at least I've got a little bit of leniency there towards the Zebras. And then Ulster beating the Draggers. So like you said, the Welsh team's not really doing well. That's why the Lions Cardiff was a little bit of a surprise for me. I thought the Lions could pull that one through. But overall, I thought we had a great weekend. Again, we can talk about the reference, but it's not about the reference. And I think that's where supporters need to, don't blame the reference. Let's revisit the laws. The laws aren't making sense at the moment, especially the ball on the ground. When a tackle is made, the tackler must daylight between him and the player that's been tackled. We did see that yesterday, but we saw so many penalties against Australia where the player did that, but he still got penalized, And you mentioned that the thing of placing the ball first before you can play, that's not being part of the game anymore. So it's a free for all. And that's why I say, just bring back one thing. The ball is the offside line. So if you come in from the side, from the back, there's no daylight, whatever, just play it, because that is killing rugby. I watched the game of the game this weekend, and how many penalties we see on the tackle ball is not good for rugby. So, Deon, let's hope in future we don't see that week in and week out, because that will drive supporters away from rugby. But we'll see you next week.